Hello there everybody, Scotia here with another video on Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, and it feels like it's been a while, at least on my end on the channel, because truth be told, I feel like the marketing and the reveals for City of the Wolves has kind of slowed down quite a bit ever since Mai got revealed. There was a very large gap between Mai and Kim Dong-hwan, and then there was, about a month, maybe just over a month gap between Dong-hwan and Gato, and, it's been I think even longer. I think, well over a month since Gato's revealed to now Kain's revealed, because Kain got revealed at the Evo Awards today. That happened just hours ago at the timing of this recording. And yeah, we're just going to talk about, Kain a bit, my thoughts on him, some of the other stuff that came out. We now know the Season 1 lineup, which is obviously probably the bigger deal about all this, because that gives us some idea of possibly where the base roster is going. It kind of just confirms, really, stuff that I've said in previous videos about where I thought the base roster was going to be going, depending on the directions of, which characters were DLC, which characters were not DLC. So now that we know at least the DLC side of things, we have a better idea, but we're going to get into that in a moment. So starting with Kain, honestly, he's not been a big favourite of mine. I do like Kain. I think he's a cool character. I think he's a cool boss in, Garo Mark of the Wolves. But I've just never really gravitated towards him much. It is really cool to see him though. Obviously he was on one of the first posters, if not actually I think it was the first poster back at one of the Evos, I think like Evo 2023 maybe, when SNK first confirmed that they were making a new Fatal Fury game. It was that poster with Kain, Billy and Rock on it. So we've known for a while now that Kain was more than likely going to be in the game, if not base roster than DLC. So I'm not too surprised that he's in the game. Also, we did hear him in, I think, the first gameplay trailer that SNK put out, where you hear all the voices of all the characters doing their moves, and Kain was one of them. I think the only character left from that trailer that we haven't seen yet is Hokutomaru. So he's definitely one of the last characters, but we'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, this isn't like an earth-shattering, character reveal for me. It's cool, it's definitely cool to see him, but, there's definitely other characters that could make it, or we know are going to make it, that I'm, more interested in seeing. But, like I said, still cool to see him. I like his design. It's a weird kind of fine line where, it's definitely a redesign, but it's so similar to his original that, it's more like a refresh, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think the biggest difference about him is his hair, and I don't like his hair that much, to be honest, in this. It's okay, but I don't know, I just liked his original hair more. But other than that, yeah, there's just not a lot I can really say about Kain. It's cool to see him, but also it didn't help as well that I think it was last week or earlier this week, SNK accidentally updated their website a bit early and pretty much spoiled for themselves that Kain was going to be the next character reveal. It's a shame, but it is what it is. So, I mean, we knew he was in the game anyway, so it's not like, it was like, like a complete out of left field character that got leaked, but it still is a shame, and I do feel bad for SNK that got leaked, that was but I mean, it was a mistake on their part, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, I think in terms of Kain, the only thing I can really talk about is his bio, which I think, to be honest, is probably the most interesting thing about him that we've gotten, from his reveal. And I won't say the full bio, word for word, but basically, his bio basically says that his sister Marie Heinlein, who was also Rock's mother and obviously Gisa's wife, has been kidnapped by a hostile organization that it's either one that works in Southtown, or it's one that Kain destroyed in the past. So it definitely seems like it's either an organization that Kain defeated in the past or a new organization, but it appears that one of them has kidnapped Marie Heinlein, obviously Kain's sister, Rock's mother, as I said. And that's the reason that he's basically teaming up with Rock in this game. The two of them are entering this KOF tournament to hopefully rescue her. And the most interesting, actually there's two interesting things about this. The first one is that this pretty much confirms that Kain is not going to be the final boss of this game, which obviously is surprising because, he was the boss of the last game. So I think a lot of people, myself included, thought there was a good chance that he was going to be the boss of this game as well, but that appears to not be the case. The other thing that's interesting is that there was a theory that quite a few people, myself included again, were throwing around as, a possible final boss of this game could have been, a sort of evil Marie Heinlein, Rock's mother is actually not this peaceful, infallible woman that, he remembers her as, but is actually, pulling strings of her own. That's pretty much not going to be the case. Marie is absolutely not going to be a character if she's captive. I mean, maybe there's a twist and, there's things going on, but I think, I think it's safe to assume at this point that she is not going to be a character, which is a shame. I think that would have been interesting, but obviously, SNK are more than likely just going in a different direction, which is fine. I'm open to seeing what they do. But yeah, I think the question now is, well, who's going to be the final boss then? And, we'll have to see. Maybe they'll announce it before the game comes out if they're playable. It's not impossible that, the final boss of this game isn't going to be playable, because in Samurai Showdown, the final boss of that game was not playable. So, it could be happening again, or it could be, the last character that they reveal is the new final boss. We'll have to wait and see. So I think the next most interesting, or perhaps the most interesting thing about all the info that we got today for City of the Wolves is that the lineup for the first season of DLC for the game has been revealed. And the lineup is Andy Bogard in summer 2025, Ken from Street Fighter, also summer 2025, Joe Higashi, fall 2025, Chun-Li, winter 2025, and then Mr. Big in early 2026. So I'll save Mr. Big for last, because he is absolutely like the most shocking character choice in this entire season, possibly even this game as a whole at this point. I am floored that they're doing Mr. Big, because I was going to go into it, but like I said, I'll save it actually. So Andy and Joe, I said in my previous video about Kim Dong-won, where I thought the roster was going following his reveal. I was pretty much convinced from that point on that Andy and Joe were going to be DLC. I think it just made the most sense. I know some people were very desperately kind of clinging on to that, like, well, Andy, Joe, and Terry, they're the original Lonely Wolves, they're the main trio of the series, and I totally get that, and I do understand being disappointed that all three aren't going to be in the game day one. Ultimately, though, I think this is the right call. Obviously, I say this as someone who was, a big fan of Mark of the Wolves, like much bigger of a fan of that than I am the rest of the Fatal Fury series. I'm a fan of the Fatal Fury series now that I've done, I've been doing the videos on the series, all the what happened ins, leading up to City of the Wolves release. So I'm much more familiar with the Fatal Fury series and the characters, and there's a lot of really cool characters that I like. But yeah, I think the main reason why I was really just kind of like, no, like Andy and Joe just make sense as DLC is because at the end of the day, this is a sequel to Mark of the Wolves, and SNK themselves have said that, and just with the rest of the roster, the base roster, it's kind of obvious that this is predominantly a sequel to Mark of the Wolves. And in all fairness to Andy and Joe, that's a game that those two weren't in. Their stories were pretty much wrapped up in real bouts, so there just wasn't that much of a priority, I guess, to have them in Garo Mark of the Wolves. Obviously, that's not saying like, oh, well, their story's finished, so there's no reason for them to come back. Obviously not. Their presence in this game is going to be the start of a new arc for the both of them, I would imagine. But, if we get a sequel to, City of the Wolves in the future, then yeah, I would expect Andy and Joe to be their, base roster. But yeah, I think it makes sense, I think it's fair to hold these back as, some of the first DLC characters for this game. I think it's much more fair to the Mark of the Wolves cast, these characters. Obviously not all of them, I think, like Rock, Bijane, Hotaru, T-Zark, Gato, like obviously these are the characters that have been in KOF in recent, in recent games and years. But there's a lot of characters from Mark of the Wolves that have never came back, until this game, and I think they deserve to come back first. I think they deserve to come back before Andy and Joe, because those are two characters that have been in countless KOFs. They've only missed, I think Andy's missed 2 KOFs, Joe has only missed 1, and they were like, what, 20 years ago now? Which is kind of crazy, but it's been a very long time since those characters skipped a game or weren't there straight away. Like I just think it's fair. Like they've all, like both of them, like they were in KOF 13, 14, and 15. Obviously that's only 3 games, but like that's still a lot more games than Kim Jae-hoon and Hokutomaru and Marco and Kevin, etc. Freeman, etc. They've been in more games than those characters have been in. So yeah, ultimately I think it's fair. I think this was the right call. I know people are going to be mad. I've already seen people online who are kind of like, wow, why would you, how dare you put Andy and Joe as DLC? It's like putting Ken and Cammy as DLC. And, to me, it's like, I don't see why that's a bad thing. I think roster rotations are healthy. To be honest, I think one of the biggest problems with fighting games these days is that they don't rotate the rosters enough. I don't think it's a big problem for Street Fighter 6, but like Tekken 8 has a problem now where its roster is so similar to 7 that, Anna Williams is more than likely going to be the first, character of Season 2 for the second game in a row. And that just shouldn't be a thing. Like, your rosters shouldn't be so similar that, like, the same character is the same position in the same DLC season as the 2 games in a row. That just shouldn't be a thing. And I've moaned about it till the cows come home, and it's this isn't the video for it, but obviously the amount of times, the Street Fighter 2 characters just immediately get added to the game day one. It's like, great, these guys again. I think it's good, and I'm glad that SNK, kind of just going like, no, like, these characters can wait. They've had a lot of time to be in other games. Like, they were just in 15, they were in 14 before it, and 13, and blah, 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 blah. They've been in all these games. They can wait a bit. Let's focus on bringing in Kevin. Not a popular character, but, maybe he deserves another chance. Let's bring in Marco, a character that is well liked and has been, asked for in KOF for years. But, it just there was never really the chance to have him in, KOF. But now he gets a chance to come back and get, another chance at the spotlight. And, this is something I really like about SNK. It's, their willingness to, stick with what they think is right in terms of respecting the original works. And obviously, this is a follow-up to, Garo Mark of the Wolves, one of the most, well-liked and popular fighting games of all time. Just like big shoes to fill, and they could have done the safest roster possible. They literally could have just done like the Fatal Fury special, roster again, and just brought back Geese, brought back Krauser. I love Blue Mary. I love Blue Mary a hell of a lot more than I love Kevin Ryan, but I think Kevin deserves it more because this is a sequel to Garo. This is a sequel to Mark of the Wolves, and Blue Mary wasn't in Mark of the Wolves. 100% I believe Blue Mary is going to be in this game eventually, probably Season 2. But you know what? She can wait a bit because she was just in 15. Same with Andy and Joe. They deserve to wait a bit because they were just in 15. They've been in so many other games and a lot of these characters haven't. So that's kind of my stance on it. I know some people won't agree and be like, oh, they're still, it's still not right, blah, blah. No, I think this was absolutely the right call. I have a lot of respect for SNK to do this. It takes guts because, Capcom play it so safe, with their lineups. I mean, at least so far with Street Fighter 6, like, Bison came back straight away. Like, Geese could have, obviously I don't want to, jinx myself too soon because, they could easily throw Geese in at any point. But, I respect them for just not going for the easy route because they absolutely could have. And I don't think many people would have blamed them, But, like, I think a good example is, like, I think I may do, like, a full video on this once, City of the Wolves is out and I see more for myself, because this could easily, like, end up, I could easily end up eating my words on this. But it's just, like, looking at Street Fighter 6 and looking at City of the Wolves and just seeing, like, these are two games that are follow-ups to games that both came out in 1999, both moved the series forward in the timeline, both introduced a ton of new characters at the expense of, moving on from the old, well-liked characters. And, to various degrees of success. And these are games that, like, people have been waiting a long time for these games to be followed up on. And you look at Street Fighter 6, and, like, that game is not a sequel to Street Fighter 3 in any way, shape, or form. Like, nothing in Street Fighter 6 currently has anything to do with 3. Like, it is not a follow-up to 3 at all. But then you look at City of the Wolves, and, like, most of these characters are back. Like, all these characters, all these storylines are continuing. And it's just so refreshing to see SNK be like this one developer, in the sea of fighting games who's like, no, like, we're actually gonna respect, where we left things off from. Like, we're not just gonna go, okay, we're moving on, but we're just gonna completely redo the storylines that we've already done. We're just gonna kind of like, we're gonna bring back Geese, and then we're just gonna have Terry versus Geese again, but we'll throw Rock in, maybe like every now and then. No, like, this is a sequel to Mark of the Wolves. Like, storylines from Mark of the Wolves are being followed up on, and that's great, and that's awesome, and I'm so happy for that. And seeing stuff like this, seeing Andy and Joe as DLC, just kind of further reinforces, like, like, these guys get it. They understand that, like, following up on this game and doing it correctly, like, is important. Like, they can't half-arse it, they can't play it safe. They can't do like what Capcom has been doing with 6, where it's like, the first storyline in that game was bringing back Bison, which is just, words can't describe how shit I think that is, but, I digress. So the other characters in the Season Pass, obviously we knew about Ken and Chun-Li, I think because SNK pretty much admitted themselves, like, they knew it was probably going to leak eventually if they didn't say anything, which, it did, obviously, so they were wise to get out and do that, straight away. I didn't talk about it in a video. I think it makes sense. I like it more than Street Fighter 6 Year 2, because obviously, it's very clear at this point that, like, this is the result of a deal that was done between SNK and Capcom, where SNK got 2 characters for City of the Wolves and Capcom got 2 characters for Street Fighter 6. It makes it a bit easier to swallow for City of the Wolves because there's 5 characters instead of, 4 like there is for Street Fighter 6. I still maintain that I would have been fine with Street Fighter 6 Year 2 if there was just, like, another character slot, like if you just had 5 characters. I think this is a better way of doing it, because my kind of hype for this season would be a lot less if it was just Andy, Ken, Joe and Chun-Li. Like, I think that's a fine season. Like, I think that's a good lineup, but, like, it's not really exciting. I think throwing Mr. Big in there, like, definitely is like, oh, holy shit, like that's crazy. Like, yeah, I think they're cool. I'm looking forward to seeing them. I'm not super pumped for them. I think it'll be fun. I think it's cool, cool kind of like cooperation thing between the two companies. If it leads to Capcom versus SNK 3 or CVS 2, all the better. That's kind of my only real feelings on it. But man, Mr. Big, like honestly, I can't think of like the last time I was this like surprised at a character choice. It honestly could have been like Cronin back in KOF 15 was the last time I was just like, what the fuck, like what, like this character. I think the craziest thing about this is because Mr. Big is an Art of Fighting character, and obviously Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury are part of the same universe that's been established for decades at this point, you know, that's not a surprise. But like, the first season, you're bringing in an Art of Fighting character, like that opens the door so wide. Because I honestly thought this would happen eventually, not necessarily with Mr. Big, but like, I've been kind of convinced for a while now that like Ryo from Art of Fighting would probably be in this game eventually. I still think he probably will be, but probably as like Mr. Karate 2 from like Bariki 1 or something like that, which I think would be fucking sick. But like, I thought that would be like season 2 or season 3 or something. Like, I didn't think they would do that straight away. The fact that it's like the first character, the first season, and the last character of that season is an Art of Fighting character. It's like crazy, like that's so crazy. Yeah, man, like I miss when like fighting games had these types of character picks where it's just like, holy shit, like you picked that character, like that's crazy. Like I respect the hell out of it. Like would never have been my first choice for, you know, the first season of DLC. You know, I probably would have done like Blue Mary or something, but you know, like I can't not respect this choice. Like it's so out there, such a crazy pick. He looks cool. Mr. Big is a really cool character. Yeah, sick. Like, what an amazing choice. Like, there's no hate or anything like that. Like, I'm not, like, for the actual character, like, playing as him, like, I'm not bothered. Like, I've never really played Mr. Big, and, you know, because he's in, I think, KOF 96, and I think 98. You know, I've never played him much. I might go and try him now just to see what he's like, but, you know, as a character and all that, I'm not really fussed about it, but just, like, as an actual, like, character choice, like, SNK going, we want Mr. Big in the first season, man, I respect the hell out of that. That's so great. So I'll wrap this last part up because I didn't expect to talk as much about that last section as I did. But yeah, the last kind of part I want to talk about now is like, where does the roster go from here? And I said in the last video, my thoughts on the base roster after Don Juan's reveal was that it was going to be Gato, Kain, Hokutomaru, Kim Jae-hoon, and Freeman. And obviously we've got Gato and Kain revealed now. Hokutomaru is pretty much all but confirmed. I'm still thoroughly convinced that Kim Jae-hoon is going to be in the game for the reasons that I stated in the other video. Mostly the fact that Don Juan didn't have a stage in his reveal trailer. To me, that seemed kind of obvious that Jae-hoon was going to have a stage and that the two would share that. Freeman, I was a bit more up in the air about. I don't think there is as much evidence pointing towards him, but I think my kind of reasoning was like, if you already got like pretty much 99% of the Garo characters at that point, you might as well just add Freeman. But yeah, pretty much that's still my like main kind of feelings on where the base roster is going to go. Like 100% I think Hokutomaru and Kim Jae-hoon are going to be at least two of them. The last character, I don't know, it could be Freeman, it could be a new final boss, if there is a new final boss, if the final boss is playable, it could be them. It could be like a surprise kind of, well, not a surprise, but it could be, you know, a classic Fatal Fury character returning. Like they could, you know, very quickly slip in Blue Mary here. They could do, you know, they could do Nightmare Geese or something like that, or if they want to be really shitty, they could just revive Geese, which I don't think they will for the reasons I said earlier, as in, you know, them respecting the story of, you know, Fatal Fury a lot. I don't think they would do that. I do think Geese will be in this game eventually, but I would hope it would be like Nightmare Geese, like non-canon. But yeah, that's still pretty much my assumption. You know, 100% Hokutomaru, Kim Jae-hoon, I'm all but convinced they're going to be in the game. Freeman, I'm 50-50 on. It just depends on where the final boss ends up going, like who is it, will they be playable, or are they just going to be like a arcade mode only type thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like, my opinions on that haven't changed. If with Kim Jae-hoon, I feel like, and Freeman, I guess, it kind of came down to me between, like, it was between them two and Andy and Joe in terms of, like, who those last two characters were going to be. And obviously, you know, we now know Andy and Joe are DLC Season 1. So, you know, I think there's pretty much just absolutely guarantees at the very least Kim Jae-hoon. I'm very, very, very certain he's going to be in the game. Like I said, it could also be Freeman. Like, I could see them doing Freeman because, you know, Freeman's not the most popular character. He's well liked, but I don't think, you know, there's a lot of other characters in Fatal Fury and SNK as a whole that are, like, a lot more popular than him. So, you know, would they do him as DLC for Season 2? Because obviously, you know, future seasons aren't going to be included with the game like Season 1 is. So it's like, you know, you have to actually sell the pass individually instead of being like, hey, you're getting the game and these characters kind of, like, basically for free. So, you know, I don't know if they'll do Freeman for a later DLC season because, you know, is he going to sell more than, say, Blue Mary? Probably not. Actually, there's no probably, he definitely won't. So, you know, I could see Freeman being in the base roster, but like I said, it just depends on who the final boss ends up being and if they're playable or not. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I didn't want to go too much into it because I ended up talking for way too long about the season 1 lineup and my feelings on that. But yeah, like I said, we're just kind of we're getting close to the game's release now. It's February 16th at the moment for me, so just a little over 2 months away to the game's release. Still kind of crazy. We've got 3 characters left to reveal. I kind of would have thought / hoped we would have been a bit farther along by now. Yeah, I kind of hoped we would have had like at least 1 more character revealed by now, and we would have had like 2 more. We could have done like 1 character in March, 1 character in April. It's a bit tight at the moment. I don't know how they're really going to balance it, coming up, because like I said at the start of the video, I know like the gaps between the reveals since Dong Hwan have been like really long, like really long gaps. Like it feels like they just kind of like forget about the game for a while, which is weird. But yeah, that's it really. Obviously when we get more info, the next reveals, we'll go from there. Hook tomorrow I'm very interested in seeing, because it seems like he's going to be aged up a little bit. Obviously Kim Jae-hoon's my favourite character pretty much in Fatal Fury. As a whole, I love Kim Jae-hoon. He's my main in Mark of the Wolves, so obviously very, very, very much looking forward to seeing him. But yeah, until then, until we get more info on the game and where the roster's going and on all that stuff, I shall see you later. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
We await your return, warrior.